So I'm going to turn it over to Rachel and just let her get started. So Dr. Bellini has been using Surefoot. She came to the Surefoot workshop that we did in Colorado last June. And I see that Amy Lissat is here. She was at that workshop as well. Hi, Amy. And Dr. Bellini is a holistic vet that works in Colorado and Illinois. She's been all over the place and worked in many different aspects of the industry, and has incorporated Surefoot into her work. But she's also been using Surefoot with her personal horse. So,
all right. So this is I'm Dr. Rachel Hart Bellini. This is my website. This is TJ. This is his nice soft eye while he's standing on Surefoot pads. So a lot of people have told me that they're afraid to use the pads because they don't want to hurt their horse. And so I want to talk a little bit about how I use them in my practice as a chiropractor, and also how I use them on my own personal horse. And I've learned a lot about, you know, how to use them on the horses that I practice on, from using it on my own horse, obviously, because he's taught me a lot, and I know him. So this is actually TJ. I just saw him on Monday, and actually I didn't adjust him. This is the trainer's horse, and we just wanted to see how he liked, what other pads he likes. He already has the orange pads, and she wanted to get some more, and so we checked him out and we set him on these green pads here, and he seemed to like those quite a bit. And the thing about using these pads is that I don't train the horse to use the pads. I just offer them to the horse. I think probably the only place that you can go wrong with these is if you use cross ties on a horse that has never seen them before, and he might get scared. And so I think that you have to approach every horse with these pads as if they might be a little bit afraid of them. But other than that, you know, the worst thing that's going to happen is the horse is going to step off the pad. And they do that a lot. And so typically, if you only have one set of pads, then I recommend trying it on one foot, trying it on another foot, trying it on a back foot, flipping the pad over, trying it on the other side, and just playing with it, and don't really have any expectations about what to do. And a lot of times the horse will tell you. So this is supposed to go to the next slide. So this is just a video of TJ, and this is just him right after we put him on the green pads, and he'd only been on the orange pads before, and so he'd never had any kind of instability at all. And the trainer was saying that she didn't see a lot when he stood on the orange pads. So this was kind of fun because he did start to process quite a bit as he stood on these, and you can really see him sort of going into himself and thinking, and you know, kind of exploring the movement and the things that he feels. And so a lot of times when I start a chiropractic session, I may start and just do something like this, especially if the horse is willing to stand on the pads, because they can, it helps to relax them quite a bit. And it also helps them to, it also helps them to tap into their postural muscles a little bit, their stability muscles. And I think that allows them to relax a little more. This is another little horse that we just started. I started him on the orange pads this particular day, and you can see that my friend here, this is Dr. Odette Suter. She came by to watch. She's also standing on the pads, and she looks like she's getting a little more out of it than the horse. Can you hear me?
yep.
Okay, all right. So this is that same horse, and this is just kind of to demonstrate one of the other things that you can see with the pads is how much more he's loading into this foot than the other. And that's something that you're going to really appreciate as you use these, is how much these horses actually do load into one leg over another leg. And as sports medicine vets or rehabilitation vets or body worker people or horse owners, that's really good information to have, because you're going to kind of know that just about everything that your horse does. I mean, this horse is obviously leaning into that left leg, and this horse does have kind of a bit of a left shoulder that gets kind of tight, and he's a little bit heavy on his forehand. And so these are all things that I take into account when I'm sort of, getting to know the horse or observing the horse. And this is something that I would like to see change over time, that he's not maybe so loading so asymmetrically. And that's another thing that you can monitor a lot with these pads, is how they're using them, how they're loading them, and all that kind of stuff. Another area where I found them to be really helpful is with nervous horses. And this happened just exactly a week ago Friday. I was at a rescue facility, and this horse was new. His name's Amigo, and he kind of came, they sort of rescued him from the owners were going to put him down because he was sort of unmanageable and difficult. And I started to work on him, and it was one of those situations where every time I got near him, he moved away. And every time I touched him, he moved away. And no matter what I did, he would move away. And so we were kind of going in circles in this little area here. And then I thought, well, let's put him on a pad. And that's another nice thing about the pads, is that they're great to sort of break up a session if you find yourself not making the kind of progress you want to make, or getting the horse to relax, or any of those things. You feel like your back is against a wall a little bit. You can stop and put the horse on a pad, and a lot of times that may shift your whole session. So anyway, in this case, we just put this horse on this half physio pad, and he was pretty nervous about it and didn't want to stand on it. And you can see the picture is actually of him stepping off of the pad. You can see the impression on the pad where he was standing on it for a very brief moment in time, but not enough time to get my camera out. So anyway, but what happened immediately afterwards is this horse stood still for his entire chiropractic session, and he stopped walking around, and he stopped moving, and he was suddenly completely grounded. And so I haven't had too many experiences with nervous horses that was quite this dramatic, but this was really very, very impressive with how just a few moments on the pad, this horse was much easier to work with. So that was great. It allowed us to have a much more productive session. It went faster. It was easier. He enjoyed it more. I enjoyed it more. This was a horse, remember, Wendy, at the clinic.
Yeah.
I think it's the same horse. If not, it was one that looked just like it. But I guess this horse was the one that bolted from the gate. So this horse came to the clinic and had a history of, it was kind of a feral horse, and he would stand at the gate, and every time the people went to get it, he would run the other way as fast as possible. And he basically stood at liberty on this green pad for a few minutes, and they took him home. And apparently the next day, he didn't bolt away from the gate. So again, much less anxious, much less nervous, much calmer. And so what's cool is I think that these pads can really, in certain cases, shortcut our ability to connect with some of these horses that are anxious, that are fearful, that are not grounded, because I do think it tends to tap into their parasympathetic nervous system a little bit, and make them feel not quite so fearful when they're around us. And I think that transfers to pretty much every other human that they meet. So that's kind of cool. So opening up, this is a video. This is my horse. This is one of the first times I put him on two pads in front. You can see he's kind of on a little bit of a pad behind. I use these pads a lot in conjunction with my work to try to open up the front end, basically that whole area, the shoulder girdle, the cervical thoracic junction, the sternum, the hyoid, the first rib, the shoulders, everything. And you can see he's really kind of working it here. He's chewing, and he's working his jaw and his hyoid. You can see that up here. He's, extending his neck. He's bringing his head down, he's bringing it forward. He's doing just a whole lot of sort of processing on his own here, flexing his neck and so on. And that, you know, again, that's work that I don't have to do. That's also work that he's exploring on his own. Sometimes you'll hear cavitations in their cervical spine when they're moving around like this. So for a while, he really liked this combination of the orange physio pad and the yellow wedge pad. Since then, he's sort of moved on to the blue pads, which he seems to like. You'll see that later. But again, this really works, you know, in conjunction with my work, because most horses do tend to want to overload their front end. They don't want to lift here from their base. There's not a well integrated connection between the jaw and the sternum. A lot of times it's broken. A lot of horses don't want to extend at the base of their neck. They just want to flex the base of their neck. Their chest is sticking out of the front of their body here when it should be lifted and it should be back. You can see he's still got a bit of a dip up here. That would be nice to sort of lift that more. And so this was a number of months ago. We're still kind of working in this area, and it gets better and better. This was a little horse I worked on the other day. Again, he was a little unhappy. He had been dumping his rider, and he was very unhappy through the shoulder, through the base of his neck, this whole right hind leg. You can see how he's kind of got it medial underneath himself and how steep his pelvis angle is. I gave him this pad to stand on, and he elected to stand on it like this, which I thought was really kind of cool because he was super tight all along the inside of his chest and his sternum here. And so here he is really kind of exploring and getting more length down the medial part of his leg here. And that's just super cool. And so afterward, I had a much easier time kind of adjusting this shoulder, adjusting these lower cervicals, because he had actually done some of the sort of myofascial work for me, some of the releasing here. And so so it's always good. I like it when they do the work for me. And it's very interesting how when you do offer these pads and you sort of offer them without any attachment to what they're doing, how much they will sort of find the feet and the areas where they want to stand, where they need the help. So where should you work on your horses when you're doing it? This is in a round pen. I love working in round pens because I love to be able to stand the horses on pads or adjust them or do things and then send them out and let them walk or jog and see how they want to change. You can see that this horse is made some decisions about how he wants to stand. This horse actually has got his main issues are sort of his right hind and his right hip and right lumbosacral area, and he has trouble pushing off here. And so you can see he's not ready really to kind of stand down on that yet. And this diagonal too, he's also chosen not to really work on this foot. But anyway, I tend to, especially when you're starting out with horses, is to give them a little bit of space, especially if they're nervous. So sometimes they think the pads are enemy number one, and it's important for them to feel like they can get away from the pads and get away from you and the pads. Sometimes it's nice just to sort of lay them out in an area with a nervous horse and let them just kind of walk around and explore the pads.
So Rachel, do you start with the pads when you're going to do a chiropractic session, or do you use them during or after? Or
it really completely depends on just how I'm sort of feeling at that particular moment. A lot of times, like with this particular client, I'll always start the horses in the round pen. I'll look at them in the round pen. I'll bring the pads in the round pen, and sometimes I'll even adjust them in the round pen. And so, like, I'll stand them on the pads. and kind of see how that changes the horse and what else like I have to do. And so I'll use them almost the same way that I'm adjusting, because the pads will also shift their bodies. Other times, if I've got a horse that's like super stiff through the front end and I'm sort of working on cross ties and, you know, I start to shift some things, I may stop and put them under 2 pads in their front end, because I want to give them a moment to sort of explore the changes that I just made, the mobility that I just gave them. So I'll let them kind of stand on the pads and just sort of think about it. A lot of times I'll have horses that even when I'm all done adjusting them, they still want to stand with the hind leg like this horse is standing, and I feel like they're not really talking to the ground yet. And so like I'll give them a softer pad and I'll put that under that foot and sort of, you know, not necessarily push them back on it, but kind of try to encourage them energetically to ground themselves and put their foot down, because a lot of times I feel like they're just not really you know, focused on the ground. And the same thing with the hind end. If I do a lot of work like on the SI joints and the sacrum and all that stuff, I let, you know, it's fun if you can put the pads on them behind and again give them a chance to explore that new mobility. Because a lot of times we in our work we're going to be shifting things and we're going to get things moving and we're going to try and get things back in place, but it's great when the horses can be a participant in that whole process, because I think that allows things to hold better, and I think that allows the brain body connection to sort of be stronger and those pathways to be a little stronger. And so this is kind of a way that I can often get them sort of involved a little bit in their own self-care, and then with a little bit of luck their owners buy pads and then they can do it afterward, and that's even cooler. I think too, you know, people talk about, oh my, you know, my horse won't stand on the pads, he doesn't want to stand on the pads. I think, you know, it's important to kind of ground yourself, lower your expectations. You know, if he's really being resistant, stop that day, come back another day, maybe, you know, think about when you're doing it, maybe try doing it after the horse has been ridden, when he's maybe a little more relaxed. You know, and just kind of play with it a little bit and play with your energy when you're approaching the pad. If you're in a hurry and you're trying to, you know, get them to stand on these pads and you have this agenda, sometimes that's not as good as just sort of organically allowing them to just explore and decide what they want to do. This is my horse, Lou. You know, this is kind of something that I like to do with him, is I'll just go out in the indoor arena and I'll bring the pads and you know, we just kind of fool around and he gets to choose sort of what he likes and what he wants to do. These are the pods. If you've never seen these, it's actually quite amazing how many horses really like standing on these pods. I have found for some reasons that thoroughbreds seem to like them more than other horses. I'm not sure why. It does seem to stimulate and maybe open up the joint capsule a little bit. And like I said, they do seem to enjoy that. We're still waiting for the dog pads, but
yep, we're working on it.
just a reminder that, you know, Hallie is waiting for her pads.
Okay.
This is a video of just a little pony I did the other day, and this is at the end of his session. This is me trying to get him to stand down on that pad there in the back, because he kind of had a little bit of a left hind, not quite as connected to the body, and as you can see, he's way more in.
Oops, we lost your audio.
Did I? Okay.
Oh, you're back.
Okay. He's more interested in what's going on outside and isn't paying attention. So that didn't really help. Here's my horse. This is Lou again, and this was kind of interesting. This was the first time I got him to stand on the blue pads behind. There's a fair bit of instability with these, and so this was his first session of standing on these pads, and you can really see him swaying quite a bit behind, but not moving too much in his front part of his body.
His neck looks completely different from that other video.
Yeah, yeah. And so he's, he's still, this is, further along, and it's helped a lot. So he's pretty still here. He's not moving a whole lot. He's definitely getting some, a lot of feedback and stuff, but he's not wanting to he's a little bit, holding on a bit in front. You can see he's a little bit braced here. You can see there's some tension in his pectoral muscles.
There's a lot of sway behind.
Right. Yeah, but a lot of sway behind. But he's pretty unstable here. So then this was a week later, and no change. Other than just another week gone by, and you can see how much more he's moving in front, and how much more stable he is behind, and how much more how much this is affecting just all the rest of his body. He can move his front end. He's a lot more relaxed through his shoulder. You're not seeing the same tension up here. He's able to pick his foot up and put it back down, and just really mess around. And so to me, and you can see how his chest is a little more lifted through here, and just a way less tension all through his front end. He's not having to grip, despite the challenge to his hind end. He's not having to grip the ground to stay.
And he's not biting on the lead anymore. I mean, it's the whole head and neck is.
That was even earlier. But again, here, this was the previous video where he's not nearly, a lot more tension, a lot more bracing up through this front end here. You can see all the the tension, lines between the muscles. These are contracted, and then we go and again, this is like nothing happened between these two sessions, other than he got ridden a few times, but he didn't have any therapy. And so just that, and I didn't use the pads at all between these sessions. And so just 1 week of using the blue pads one time, you can really see how much more he was able to relax on these pads. And his neck, there's just a lot less tension up in the shoulder and in the neck. He's a lot more confident here, and just in general, this horse has become a much more confident horse in every part of his life. He's got a better ranking in the herd. He's not quite as reactive to ride. He's better, just about all things that we do. And this is kind of, to me, sort of what I'm really trying to, one of the things I'm really trying to accomplish. This horse wasn't always good for the farrier. And I think that in general, at least in our barn, I see a lot of horses that are quite anxious for getting their shoes put on. And, Lou has got, they do a hard bar on one foot and pour-ins, and, he's there for a couple hours, and he used to be pretty stressed out by the whole process. And now, you can see, like, just his eye, how it's half shut there, just standing there. And, when a horse is stable, having their legs picked up doesn't make them anxious. And, for any vets that listen to this, or people that do flexion tests, I've always wondered, why can't horses stand on 3 legs? Why is it so hard? And it's because they are not stable in their other legs, whether they're sound, whether they're strong, whether they've got muscles. I don't care what they look like. They should be able to stand like this. And here's the front foot again. He's completely relaxed. His back has got good length. He's soft through his muscles. He's very, very comfortable here. And here's just a video. I was just kind of messing around, doing, really trying to challenge him here. And I put him on 2 of the blue pads to stand on, and then he's getting his other leg worked on. And again, you can see that he's cool. He's on these unstable pads, and he's not,
You wouldn't even know the farrier was working on him until the camera moves back.
Exactly. And so, you know, this is a horse that when I first started riding him, I couldn't pick up any of his legs. I mean, he would strike with his front legs and cow kick with his rear legs because
Wow.
he was not comfortable standing on any one leg. And it's the Surefoot pads have made a big, you know, a huge difference in terms of, you know, his ability to be stable. And here's TJ again having with his eye. Oh no, this is Lou getting his shoes, sorry. You know, the stability training makes everything you do with their horse easier. Everything. There's less bracing, there's less compensation, and there's less fear. And it's really amazing. I've found that in my practice, a lot of people ask, you know, should I charge more? Should it take more time? You know, at the moment for me, I think actually it takes less time to adjust the horses if I can get them to stand on the pads for a little bit, because they are able to relax more, and you know, they're more relaxed. And so I did a whole bunch of horses at one barn, and it was amazing because I got through them way faster than I expected to. And most of these horses stood on pads and they just adjusted faster. They just adjusted easier. They just were more willing. They were more relaxed. They didn't fight as much. So that's, you know, and again, it's very organic how I use it when I'm working. I mean, if I'm working on a horse and I'm not able to get something, I may just stop, put him on some pads.
Right. So we have less than a minute, and I want to thank you so much for doing this lecture again. And I think the thing that was the most important for me was when you said when you first got this horse, he would strike and cow kick, because you look at that horse with the farrier working on him, and that tells the story right there.
Yeah, it really, you know, it's been a huge, the instability is a huge problem with horses that we don't treat enough or recognize enough or acknowledge enough. And you know, it's great to have these, it's great to have this tool. And it's great to see you again.
Yeah.
It was so fun, wasn't it?
AAP was a blast. We're going to do it again, okay, in Las Vegas. All right. Perfect. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and thank you, Rachel, for doing this again. And